Chapter 1, The Closet Discovery. Rob Mills liked to think he kept a pretty tidy place. Not spotless. Life as a construction worker and single father didn't exactly allow for showroom conditions, but respectable. Lived in. His small two-bedroom rental smelled faintly of laundry detergent and the lemon cleaner he used every time Donnie was scheduled to come over. 13-year-old boys could pretend not to care about things like that, but Donnie always noticed. "Smells like you cleaned," he'd say with that half-smile that insulted and complimented all at once. Rob took it as a win. Tonight the house was quiet except for the sound of sizzling ground beef on the stove and Donnie's footsteps padding back and forth down the hallway. Rob assumed his son was rummaging for batteries or a misplaced phone charger. Donnie's visits tended to follow a pattern of casual chaos. He didn't think anything of it until the footsteps stopped. A door creaked, and then, silence. "Hey, everything okay back there?" Rob called over his shoulder, flipping the spatula in the pan. No response. Rob frowned. Donnie wasn't the silent type. He set the spatula down and wiped his hands on a dish towel, heading toward the hallway. Donnie's bedroom door was open, but the sound hadn't come from there. It was coming from his room. "Donnie?" he asked again. Still nothing. He pushed open his door and froze. On the floor, inside the open closet, surrounded by a sea of worn spiral notebooks, sat Donnie. Cross-legged, elbows propped against his knees, face bent close to the yellowed paper pages. He looked like he'd discovered buried treasure. When Rob cleared his throat, Donnie jolted as though he'd been caught committing a felony. I wasn't snooping," Donnie blurted, eyes wide. "Well, I mean, I was kind of snooping, but in a normal way, not like creepy. I was just looking for, something?" Rob stared at the notebooks spilling across the carpet. Familiar covers, bent spines, scribbled labels. New Haven, character sheets, Goblin Tavern, faction war timeline. His entire childhood world-building project laid bare. "Oh," Rob said, because his brain had temporarily forgotten how sentences worked. "You found those." Donnie held up one notebook with cautious reverence. "Dad, what is all this?" Rob exhaled slowly and sank onto the edge of his bed. For a moment, he wasn't sure how to explain it. How do you put a childhood passion into neat words? How do you tell your kid about the worlds you once escaped into? "Well," Rob began, rubbing the back of his neck, "when I was your age, maybe even younger, I got really into fantasy stuff. Tabletop games. Dungeons and Dragons. I liked writing stories, building maps, imagining adventures. This is all that." Donnie blinked at him. "You made all of this? Like, this whole world?" Rob laughed, embarrassed but warmed. "Yeah, guess I got carried away with it. Every time I thought of something new, I'd start another notebook." Donnie opened one of them at random, scanning a page filled with rough drawings of a crooked tavern, with a large goblin face carved over the doorway. "What's this place?" "That?" Rob leaned forward. "That's the Bloody Goblin. Kind of the central hub for adventures in the world. Travelers came there looking for quests, lost heirlooms, monster problems, sometimes even political drama. It was fun to imagine." "You made politics?" Donnie asked, eyes narrowing comically. "Not real politics," Rob said. "Fantasy politics. Much less irritating." Donnie snorted, flipping another page. "This is actually really cool." The words hit Rob harder than he expected. He hadn't thought about New Haven in years, certainly not with pride. But Donnie was reading his doodles, his weird childhood imaginings, with genuine interest. Something in Rob's chest loosened. "You want dinner?" Rob asked softly. "We can talk more about it. Can we take the notebooks with us?" Donnie asked immediately. Rob hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Sure, grab a stack." They ended up eating pizza at the kitchen table, the notebook spread between paper plates and napkins. Rob walked Donnie through the early drafts, the kingdom layouts, the crude maps, the overdramatic story arcs he'd once considered genius. Donnie asked questions nonstop. "How old were you when you made this? Did you ever run a real game with this world? Why does this goblin have a mustache?" Each question made Rob laugh more, the tension he hadn't realized he carried melting away with every minute. "You really like doing this, huh?" Donnie asked eventually, leaning back in his chair with grease smudged on his cheek. "Yeah," Rob admitted. "It was one of those things that just made sense to me. Building stuff with my hands was always good, but building stories, worlds, that felt different." Donnie studied him, expression softening. "I didn't know you liked stuff like this." Rob shrugged, suddenly shy. "I guess I packed it away when life got busy. Work, bills, making sure you had what you needed. Didn't really seem important anymore." "Dad," Donnie said slowly, "I think it's important." Rob blinked. "What do you mean?" "You're good at it," Donnie said simply. "And I like seeing you talk about it. It's like you get all excited and animated. It's cool." The words touched something he hadn't expected. He cleared his throat lightly. "Well, thanks, kiddo." They talked for another hour about characters, about quests, about the ridiculous wizard Rob once designed who could only cast spells that involved cheese. Donnie laughed so hard he nearly inhaled pepperoni. Finally, when the clock hit 10, Rob nudged the notebooks aside. All right, bud. Time for bed. Big day tomorrow. Your mom says you've got soccer practice. Donnie groaned but stood, gathering a few of the notebooks into his arms. Can I look at these in my room? Rob hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, just don't stay up too late reading. That's a rule. Sure, Donnie said, already halfway down the hall. Rob watched him go, the notebooks tucked securely to his chest as though they were precious. Maybe they were. When Donnie's door clicked shut, Rob collected the remaining notebooks and stacked them neatly on the kitchen table. He ran a hand over the top one, its cover frayed, the ink faded. He hadn't opened these in years. Seeing Donnie so invested, so eager, had stirred something he thought he'd put to rest. A spark of curiosity. A question he'd long ago buried under drywall dust, overtime shifts, and the constant push to be a stable parent. Maybe there's still something here, he thought. Something I can share. From the hallway came the faint sound of pages turning. Rob smiled. For the first time in a long time, he felt like someone had cracked open a door inside him and let a little light back in. Tomorrow, he figured, he'd show Donnie how the magic system worked. Or maybe the Goblin clans. Or maybe, just maybe, he'd start looking for ways to turn all this into something more. Something they could enjoy together. After all, it had been a long time since he'd gone adventuring. And maybe he was finally ready to dust off the map. Chapter 2. A plan too ambitious. Sunday mornings at Rob's house always had a familiar rhythm. Coffee brewing, a half-hearted attempt at pancakes, and Donnie wandering into the kitchen with his hair sticking up in improbable angles like he'd been wrestling imaginary monsters all night. This morning, though, he entered with a very different energy. Wide awake, alert, and hugging a library book to his chest like it contained ancient secrets. Rob had just taken his first sip of coffee when Donnie announced, "I have a surprise." Rob blinked sleepily. "Is it the kind of surprise that requires me to sit down?" "Yes," Donnie said with dramatic seriousness. Rob obeyed, sliding into the chair at the table. Donnie placed the book in front of him with a flourish, as though unveiling treasure. "Beginner's Guide to Game Development?" Rob read aloud. "Ha! I checked it out at the school library," Donnie said, hands planted on his hips. "We should make your New Haven world into a game." Rob stared at the cover, unsure if he'd heard correctly. "A game? Like a real game? A video game? Us?" "Yeah," Donnie said, vibrating with excitement. "I mean, why not? You already did all the world building. And I've been watching videos on how people code stuff. It looks fun." Rob flipped through the pages of the book. It was filled with diagrams of code blocks, little sprites, and step-by-step explanations. None of it made more than vague sense to him. Donnie," Rob said carefully, "I barely understand the difference between RAM and... what's the other one? Rum?" Donnie shrugged. "We can learn together." Rob set the book down and rubbed his forehead. "Kiddo, this looks complicated. But we don't have to make the whole thing at once," Donnie insisted. "Just little stuff, like the tavern menu or a map. I want to learn. And I want you to learn with me." The sincerity in the boy's eyes made something inside Rob twist. He could build a shed from scratch, operate heavy machinery like second nature, and survive any job site chaos, but coding? That felt like trying to read ancient runes. But Donnie looked so hopeful. How bad could it be? Donnie added softly, almost shy. Rob let out a sigh. "All right, we can try. But I'm telling you now, this might be a disaster." Donnie grinned. "Awesome. I'll get my notebook." Over the next few weeks, they plunged into learning, if learning could be defined as two confused people repeatedly Googling phrases like, "Why won't this code work?" and "What is a compiler error?" in simple terms. Evenings became a pattern of Rob squinting at a laptop screen after long construction shifts, Donnie sketching character designs beside him. They made progress, tiny bits of progress that felt monumental. A moving square sprite that was theoretically a character, a box that changed color when clicked, a crude map that looked more like a potato than a kingdom. Their living room became an explosion of printed tutorials, scribbled diagrams, and empty pizza boxes. Rob started taking the game book to work on his breaks. His coworkers snickered. "You joining NASA, Mills?" one of them joked. "Building the next big app?" another teased. Rob rolled his eyes good-naturedly but kept studying. He wanted to help his son. He wanted to keep that spark of excitement alive. But the deeper they went, the more obvious it became they were out of their depth. One night, after Donnie had finally dozed off on the couch mid-sketch with a pencil still in hand, Rob stared at the code on the laptop like it was mocking him. Lines and lines of symbols, errors he didn't understand, concepts he couldn't wrap his head around. "You're not a programmer," he told himself. "You've got calloused hands and a GED and the patience of a man who hates traffic lights. You can't do this." He closed the laptop and leaned back, rubbing his eyes. Donnie wanted this so much. He wanted them to do it together. But Rob didn't want to set him up for disappointment. The next morning, after dropping Donnie off with Carol, Rob sat in his truck for several minutes before starting the engine. His phone was open to the search results he'd typed in late the night before. "Beginner programming classes near me." Half the results were online, but one caught his attention, an evening class offered at the community center. It was described as beginner-friendly, hands-on, and taught by someone named Marcy Allen. Rob lingered on the listing longer than he expected. He thought about Donnie's sketches. He thought about the excitement in the boy's voice. He thought about the mountain of concepts he still didn't understand. "All right," he muttered to no one in particular. "Fine, I'll give it a shot." The first day of class, Rob felt absurdly out of place. The room smelled faintly of coffee and dry erase markers. Most of the other students seemed younger, early 20s, earbuds in, laptops plastered with stickers. Rob sat in the back with a notebook and borrowed pen, wondering if he'd made a huge mistake. Then the instructor walked in. She was shorter than he expected, with curly dark hair pulled into a messy bun and bright eyes that scanned the room with unguarded enthusiasm. She wore jeans, a soft sweater, and the kind of smile that made people sit up straighter. "All right, coding adventurers," she said cheerfully, clapping her hands together. "My name is Marcy Allen, and I'll be your tour guide into the magical, occasionally chaotic world of programming." A few students chuckled. Rob found himself smiling despite his nerves. Marcy went through her introduction, her background in game development, her love for designing worlds, her belief that anyone can learn to code if they're willing to embrace mistakes as plot twists. She paced the room as she spoke, energetic and expressive, making even the driest concepts sound fun. When she reached Rob's row, her eyes lingered on him, curious, not judgmental. She smiled. "New face?" she asked quietly. Rob cleared his throat. "Yeah, first class." "Welcome," she said, warm and sincere. Then, noticing his calloused hands on the desk, she added with a grin, "You look like someone who actually builds things in real life. This should be easy for you." Rob almost laughed. "I wouldn't bet on that." But her confidence eased something in him. Later, during introductions, when it was his turn to speak, Rob felt every student's eyes on him. He shifted awkwardly. I'm Rob Mills," he said. "I work construction. My son, he's 13, got me into this. We're, working on a game idea together." The room went quiet for a second. Then Marcy said softly, "That's actually really sweet." Rob felt heat rise to his cheeks. "And ambitious," she added brightly. "I love it. What kind of game?" Rob hesitated, then said, "It's based on a world I built as a kid, New Haven, a fantasy place, with goblin taverns and quests." Marcy's face lit up like someone had handed her fireworks. "You built your own world? That's incredible." Rob waved a hand vaguely. "It's mostly doodles and notes. That's how all the best games start," Marcy said. "I'd love to see it sometime." Rob blinked. She said it casually, like it wasn't a big deal, like she meant it. The class continued, loops, variables, conditionals, but Rob found himself watching Marcy more than the whiteboard. She made mistakes on purpose to teach them how to debug. She told stories about misbehaving code like they were stubborn pets. She had that rare energy of someone who genuinely loved what they did. By the end of the session, Rob was exhausted but hopeful. Maybe this wouldn't be impossible after all. As he packed his things, Marcy approached him. "Hey, Rob." He looked up. "Yeah, your son's idea?" she said with a gentle smile. "It's a good one, and you're a good dad for doing this with him." Rob swallowed, suddenly unsure where to look. "Thanks, I just don't want to let him down." "You won't," she said confidently. "Trust me." And for the first time since the idea began, Rob thought, maybe he really wouldn't. Chapter 3, Enter Marcy Allen. By the second week of class, Rob had settled into a tentative routine. Show up early, sit in the back, try not to look like a man who'd wandered into the wrong building. He'd never taken adult education courses before, and there was an odd vulnerability in admitting at 35 that he was a complete beginner at something. Construction, he could do blindfolded. Parenting, he was figuring out. Coding, felt like sorcery. But every time the frustration threatened to overwhelm him, he remembered Donnie's eager grin, the way his son had hugged those New Haven notebooks to his chest, as though they held the secrets of the universe. And Rob pushed through. Tonight, Marcy swept into the classroom with her usual whirlwind energy. Her hair was wild from the evening wind. Her sweater looked like it had been chosen purely for comfort, and she carried a travel mug with a sticker that read, "I swear it worked 5 minutes ago." "All right, brave coders," she announced, flipping on the projector. "Tonight we're wrestling with loops. They're powerful, they're flexible, and if you do them wrong, you will create an infinite loop that traps your computer in a tiny digital existential crisis. So, let's begin." The class chuckled. Rob almost did too. Marcy had this way of making everything lighter. She wasn't patronizing, and she wasn't one of those instructors who lectured from a script. She joked. She asked questions. She encouraged mistakes, celebrated small wins, and talked about debugging like it was a heroic quest. When she stepped beside Rob's desk, he sat up straighter automatically. "How's it going over here?" she asked, leaning just enough to read his screen. Fine," Rob lied. His code currently resembled alphabet soup. Marcy squinted. I see we've entered the 'oh no, I broke the universe' stage. Classic beginner milestone." He let out a breathy laugh. "Is it that obvious?" "Oh yeah," she said cheerfully. "But that's okay. It means you're learning." She tapped the screen where his loop was stuck. You just need a stopping condition. You told the computer to keep running as long as the variable is less than 10, but you never actually changed the variable. So it's just stuck forever. Rob blinked. Ha! Programming pro tip. You gotta give your computer a way out, Marcy said. It's like parenting. Boundaries. He raised an eyebrow. You a parent? Nope, she replied instantly, grinning. But I've taught enough beginners to know people and computers both get clingy if you don't tell them when to stop. Rob chuckled, more relaxed now. Got it. Stopping condition. Boundaries. Right. Marcy nudged his notebook with her elbow. Do you mind if I sit a minute? Sure, he said, surprised. She pulled up a chair beside him, close enough that he caught the scent of coffee and vanilla. She moved confidently through the code, pointing out where he could fix things. Rob listened intently, trying to absorb every word, though he was acutely aware of how close she was sitting. You're getting the hang of this, she said after a moment. I feel like I'm drowning, he admitted. Totally normal. If you weren't drowning, I'd worry. He shook his head with a half laugh. My son thinks I'm some kind of genius for doing this. Marcy turned to him, curious. Tell me more about him. Oh, Rob rubbed the back of his neck. His name's Donnie. He's 13. Smart. Creative. Better at this than I am, honestly. He wants to make a game together, based on the world I came up with as a kid. That sounds amazing, Marcy said, and her expression softened in a way Rob didn't expect. Seriously, do you know how many parents would kill for their kid to actually want to build something with them? He shrugged, suddenly embarrassed. I just don't want to let him down. He's excited, and I'm just trying to keep up. You're doing great, she said. Not everyone shows up for their kids the way you do. Rob remained quiet, not trusting himself to respond. The sincerity in her tone did something to him, something that made his chest tighten a little. Marcy, either unaware or mercifully ignoring his internal chaos, flipped open a notebook he'd brought from home. The one labeled New Haven Lore Volume 2 in faded marker. What's all this? She asked. Rob's instinct was to snatch it back, shove it under the desk, and deny any knowledge of it. Instead, he forced himself to breathe. It's the world I built, he said. The game idea Donnie wants to make. Marcy began reading with a focus that surprised him. She laughed softly at a sketch of a one-eyed tavern bouncer. She tilted her head thoughtfully at the map of the northern marshlands. She traced a line of text describing the founding of the Bloody Goblin Tavern. Rob, she said finally, this is really good. He shook his head. It's childish. It's imaginative, she corrected. You've got political factions, cultural notes, unique geography, character motivations. This is the kind of foundation Real games are built on. You're being nice, he muttered. I'm being honest, she said, lightly tapping the page. I work with game designers. Trust me, I know the difference between random doodles and world building with potential. This has heart, and humor, and personality. Rob stared at her, at a loss for words. She closed the notebook gently. You should be proud of this. No one, no teacher, no friend, no peer, had ever said that to him about his notebooks. Thanks, he murmured. Marcy stood, smiling in a way that felt unexpectedly personal. If you ever want help turning this into something more structured, just ask. I'd love to see where it goes. Rob swallowed, nodding. Yeah, okay, maybe I will. She moved back to the front of the class, leaving him with a strange buzzing in his chest. After class, Rob lingered behind, packing up his things slowly. A couple of other students filed out, chatting animatedly about code snippets. Rob felt oddly buoyant, like someone had inflated his ribs. Marcy approached with her travel mug in hand. Heading home? She asked. Yeah, Rob said. Gotta be up early. Construction, right? He smiled. Yep, lots of concrete. Lots of early mornings. Lots of cursing at misplaced beams. She laughed. Sounds intense. It pays the bills, he said. And I don't mind the work. Well, she said, if the programming ever gets too brutal, feel free to stay after class. I don't mind going over stuff. That's really generous, he replied. It's not generosity, she said, waving him off. I just like seeing people excited about building things. Rob raised an eyebrow. Even if those people are hopeless at loops? Especially those people, she countered. Hopeless beginners turn into the best programmers. They know how to fight for every win. Rob chuckled. I don't know if I'm fighting or just flailing. Hey, she said with a playful glare. Flailing is just fighting without form. He shook his head, amused. I'll keep that in mind. She stepped toward the door, holding it open for him. See you Thursday, Rob. There was a warmth in her tone. Something casual, friendly, but not just polite. Rob felt his ears heat. See you, Marcy. Driving home, Rob couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Just a little. Just enough. He wasn't used to this. Being seen not as a dad, not as a construction worker, but as someone with imagination, with creativity, with potential. Marcy had looked at his world the way he once had, as though it held adventure. And for the first time in years, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, his story wasn't finished. Maybe it was just beginning. When he got home, he opened his laptop, stared at the code he'd been wrestling with for days, and tried again. This time, the loop worked, and Rob smiled like a man who'd just discovered magic. Chapter 4, Construction, Code, and Complications. Rob always said construction had a rhythm, an unspoken tempo that everyone on the crew fell into once the day got rolling. By 7 a.m., the site was buzzing with activity. Nail guns firing like distant fireworks, saws whining, boots crunching over gravel, men shouting measurements over the machinery. It should have felt familiar and grounding, the kind of environment that demanded enough physical focus to quiet the mind. But this morning, Rob found his attention drifting. He measured once, twice, realized he'd read the tape wrong both times. "Don't hurt yourself thinking, Mills," one of his co-workers shouted with a grin. Yeah, Rob muttered, shaking his head. "You good?" asked Travis, a longtime friend on the crew. Weathered, sharp-eyed, and gifted at sniffing out emotional shifts even when no one asked him to. "Fine," Rob said. Travis eyed him. "You look like a man who's either in trouble or in love." Rob nearly dropped the beam he was holding. "What? No, neither." Travis snorted. "Aha, it's school stuff," Rob said, immediately regretting the phrasing. "School stuff," Travis repeated, amused. "You in trouble with the principal or something?" Rob set the beam down and straightened. "I'm taking this programming class, okay? At the community center." Travis stared for several seconds, then broke into a grin so wide it made Rob want to walk into traffic. "You? Computer class? Oh, this I gotta hear." "It's for my kid," Rob said quickly. "He wants to make a game. I'm just trying to learn enough not to screw it up." Travis's grin softened into something more genuine. "That's actually pretty cool, man." Rob shrugged but felt a flicker of pride. "Yeah, well, it's hard. My instructor's helping, but I still feel like I'm drowning in code half the time." At the word instructor, Travis's eyebrows lifted just slightly. "Instructor, huh?" Rob rolled his eyes. "Don't start." "I'm not saying anything," Travis said innocently. "Just observing. You've been smiling at your phone a lot lately." "I do not smile at my phone." "You do, actually." Travis nodded toward him with the confidence of someone who'd testify in court. "And you've been humming." "Mills, you don't hum." Rob grabbed a pencil and shoved it behind his ear. "Can we please focus on the wall framing?" "Sure," Travis said lightly. "For now." It wasn't that Rob was thinking about Marcy. Not constantly, just frequently, occasionally. Enough that he caught himself rereading her handwritten notes from last class. The little arrows she'd drawn to indicate where his code was looping wrong. The encouraging margin scribble. "You're close. Don't underestimate yourself." He replayed the sound of her laugh more than he cared to admit. But he wasn't in love. That would be ridiculous. He barely knew her. And he had responsibilities. A kid. A two-household schedule. A career that didn't exactly lend itself to spontaneous romance. Except, she made learning feel possible. She made him feel capable in a way he hadn't felt since high school. And she seemed genuinely invested, not just as a teacher, but as a person. He wasn't sure what to do with that feeling. After work, Rob pulled into his driveway, exhausted and dusty but determined. He showered, changed into a fresh t-shirt, and opened his laptop at the kitchen table. He'd expected his brain to shut down after a full day of lugging beams and climbing ladders. But instead he found the code, last class's assignment, playing like a half-familiar tune in his mind. He typed slowly at first, then with growing confidence. He fixed the loop, tweaked a sprite movement function, even added a small feature, an on-screen message, just to see if he could. And when it worked, he leaned back, incredulous. "Holy crap," he whispered. He grabbed his phone, thumb hovering over Donnie's name. But Donnie was at Carol's tonight. Rob didn't want to interrupt dinner or homework or whatever arrangement they had going. Still, he texted him. "Got the loop fixed. I'll show you next time you're here." The reply came almost instantly. "Dad, that's awesome. Can't wait." Rob smiled and exhaled. The kitchen felt warmer than usual. A little later, he pulled into the parking lot of the community center for that night's class. He was early enough that the hallway was mostly empty, the lights buzzing softly overhead. He took a seat near the back like usual, pulling out his notebook. A few minutes passed before the door swung open and Marcy entered, humming under her breath, travel mug steaming. When she spotted Rob, her face lit up in a way he tried not to overanalyze. "Hey Rob," she called, walking over. "You're early." "Yeah," he said casually. Traffic wasn't bad. Marcy set her bag down and leaned on the desk beside him. "How'd the assignment go?" "I know loops are everyone's favorite torture device." Rob tried not to puff his chest like some proud rooster. "Actually, I got it working." Marcy blinked. "Really?" "Yeah. By yourself." He nodded. She slapped both hands on the desk with dramatic enthusiasm. "Yes, that is what I'm talking about." Rob laughed. "It wasn't anything fancy." "It doesn't have to be fancy," she said. "It just has to work." "Did it feel good?" "Yeah," he admitted. "Surprisingly good." "Well, brace yourself," she said with mock seriousness. Because tonight, we tackle arrays. Rob groaned. Why do I feel like that's worse? Oh, it is, she said cheerfully. But I'll be here to hold your hand. The moment the words left her mouth, she paused, cheeks coloring slightly. I mean, metaphorically, unless, well, you get what I mean. Rob cleared his throat, equally flustered. Right, metaphorical hand-holding. Got it. They stood there in a brief, warm awkwardness before Marcy spun back toward the front of the room to prepare for class. Rob watched her, heart thudding, telling himself for the 100th time that he was not developing a crush. He was simply admiring her teaching methods. Right? After class, as students filtered out, Marcy approached again. Hey, she said, brushing a stray curl behind her ear. Would you like to stay a few minutes? I want to show you something related to your project. Rob hesitated. Sure. She dimmed the overhead lights, then pulled up a small prototype window on her laptop. A crude but charming scene loaded, bare-bones graphics, but recognizable enough that Rob's breath caught. Is that the tavern? He asked. Sort of, Marcy said. I mocked up a super rough version based on your description, just to show you what it could look like once you and Donnie start building. Rob leaned closer. The little pixel tavern even had the goblin face carving, wonky and oversized, exactly like his old drawing. You did this, Rob said quietly. It took like 20 minutes, she said modestly. But I thought it might help you visualize things. Rob shook his head, speechless. She wasn't just teaching him to code. She was doing extra work, making an effort, building alongside him. Marcy, he said softly. Thank you. She waved him off. Don't thank me. It's fun. And honestly, I think New Haven is a world worth building. Something in her tone made his pulse do something inconvenient. Well, she added, if you and Donnie ever want an outside consultant, I'd be happy to help. Totally pro bono. Or for pizza. I accept pizza as payment. Rob chuckled. Good to know. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, then said, You're easy to root for, Rob. His heart thumped once, hard. I appreciate that. She took a small step back, her smile softening. Get home safe, okay? You too. Later that night, Rob sat in his truck for a moment before turning the key. His reflection in the windshield looked both exhausted and strangely energized. He wasn't imagining it. Something was happening. Something small, tentative, hopeful. Something that made him feel lighter on his feet. But he wasn't ready to name it. Not yet. Instead, he opened his notebook, stared at the crude map of New Haven he'd drawn as a kid, and added a new detail. A tiny pixel-style sketch of the Bloody Goblin Tavern. The future suddenly felt like it had more possibilities than he'd allowed himself to consider. Chapter 5, the group project that isn't. 2 weeks into the class, the energy in the community center computer lab shifted. The whiteboard had Micro Project Week scrawled across it in Marcy's exuberant handwriting, complete with stars and a tiny doodle of a sword-waving stick figure. Rob had walked in expecting a raise, frustration, and the usual mild panic. Instead, he found students clustering into pairs, comparing skills and laptops with the same jittery energy of kids picking partners for dodgeball. He took his usual seat in the back, hoping irrationally that Marcy wouldn't ask him to partner with someone. No such luck. All right, friends, Marcy said, clapping sharply. This week we're doing micro prototypes. Just tiny playable snippets, menu screens, simple interactions, little bits of game logic. Nothing huge, nothing graded. Pure fun. Students began pairing up immediately. Rob sank lower into his chair, plotting an escape that did not involve feigning injury. Then Marcy beamed directly at him. Rob, you're with me. He blinked. What? She tapped her pen against her palm. You and me. Partners. Shouldn't you, help everyone else? I will, she said breezily. But first, you and I are doing this together. I want to see where your ideas go when you're not stuck debugging loops. A flush crept up Rob's neck. I don't want to slow you down. Marcy scoffed. Please, you're not slowing anybody down. Besides, I kind of want an excuse to dig into New Haven lore. She said it so casually that Rob didn't have time to react before she slid into the seat beside him, close enough that he had a brief, ridiculous urge to adjust his posture like a teenager on his first date. Okay, she said. Show me what we've got to work with. Rob opened his binder, flipping to the pages he'd brought, the tavern map, the guild roster, a couple of creature sketches Donnie had drawn. Marcy leaned in, humming with interest. This world of yours has bones, she said. Most students show me half-baked platformer ideas. But this has a sense of history. Rob shrugged. I had a lot of free time as a kid. No, she said. You had imagination. The way she said it, gentle but firm, made his chest tighten. So, Marcy continued, tapping a finger on one of Donnie's drawings. For our micro project, I say we make something tiny but atmospheric, like a basic scene from the Bloody Goblin. Rob raised an eyebrow. You want to start with the tavern? Why not? It's iconic. Iconic to who? He asked, teasing. To me, she said with mock seriousness. Let's do it. They spent the next hour sketching ideas on the whiteboard. Rob was surprised at how naturally the conversation flowed. What if the bartender gives the player a simple quest? Marcy suggested. Like finding a missing mug? Rob asked. She laughed. Sure. A mug. A magical mug. A cursed mug. Rob chuckled. We can't have curses in a micro-project. Fine, she said. A mildly inconvenient mug. Their banter drew a few amused glances from other students, but neither seemed to notice. They bounced ideas off each other like they'd done it for years, and when they finally sat down to code, Marcy shifted seamlessly between teaching and collaborating. See this line? She said, pointing. That's where the menu loads. Rob nodded, trying to keep up. Okay. And this, she added, highlighting another part, is a placeholder for interaction logic. We can insert your tavern dialogue here. My dialogue? She gave him a conspiratorial smile. You're the writer here. I'm just the code goblin. Code goblin, he repeated, amused. It's a noble title, she said solemnly. Ancient, revered, requires snacks. Rob snorted. Snacks I can do. Good, she said. I accept offerings of chocolate. 2 hours later, the first rough version of their scene was ready. It wasn't beautiful. The sprite images were boxy. The tavern interior looked cramped. The dialogue box flickered occasionally like it was nervous. But when Rob clicked on the bartender character, a squat little pixel man with a crooked smile, the text appeared. Welcome to the Bloody Goblin, adventurer. Mind watching your step? The floor's sticky this time of year. Rob laughed so suddenly he startled himself. You used my line. It was too good not to, Marcy said, pleased. It's dumb. It's charmingly dumb, she corrected. And perfect. They kept tinkering until class ended. And even then, Marcy stayed longer than necessary, helping Rob polish small details. When they finally closed their laptops, she stretched and groaned theatrically. Ugh, my neck. Coding is hazardous. Rob hesitated before saying, I could help with that, if you want. I mean, not in a weird way. Just construction worker. Strong thumbs. He regretted the words instantly, but Marcy only laughed. I'll keep that in mind. As they packed up, she rested a hand briefly on his forearm. Seriously, Rob, you're doing great. Your instincts are good. Don't doubt yourself so much. Her hand was warm. Her words warmer. Rob swallowed. Thanks, really. She gave a soft smile before heading toward the door. See you Thursday. Driving home, the night felt charged, like the lingering buzz after a great concert. He thought about how easily they'd work together, how natural the laughter came, how she never talked down to him. He liked being around her, but liking her brought complications. He had Donnie to think about, his schedule, his responsibilities, and there was Carol to consider. Not that she'd mind, but the co-parenting equilibrium they had was delicate. He didn't want to introduce chaos. He told himself all of that. But when he finally fell asleep that night, he dreamed of a pixelated tavern, a crooked bartender, and Marcy leaning close, tapping her pen against the screen. That weekend, Donnie came over, full of restless energy and clutching a sketchbook. Dad, look what I made. Rob opened it to find an incredibly detailed drawing of the Bloody Goblin. Barrels, lanterns, crooked beams, even patrons. This is amazing. I used your old drawings as inspiration, Donnie said proudly. Can we put this in the game? Rob hesitated, caught between pride and realism. Maybe not right away, but we could use parts of it. Simplify it. Donnie nodded enthusiastically. And I thought, maybe the bartender should have a pet. Like, a little gremlin or something. Rob grinned. A gremlin? Yeah, named Snickers. Snickers the gremlin? It's perfect, Donnie insisted. Rob ruffled his hair. Okay, Snickers stays. As they worked through sketches, Donnie asked casually, how's your class going? Good, Rob said, maybe too quickly. Donnie narrowed his eyes. You like your teacher? Rob froze. What? No, I mean yes, she's good. She's a good teacher. Donnie smirked. Aha, it's not like that, Rob added. Didn't say it was, Donnie said, flipping to another page. But Mom said you've been smiley lately. Oh, did she now? Yep, Rob sighed, running a hand over his face. Unbelievable. Mom said it's nice to see, Donnie added quietly. You should smile more. Rob looked at his son, the sincerity on his face completely undoing him. Thanks, kiddo. Later that night, once Donnie was asleep, Rob opened his laptop to review the micro-project code. He expected frustration. Instead, he found himself smiling at the crooked bartender sprite. He emailed Marcy the updated file with a simple note, fixed a few typos, added placeholder for Snickers the gremlin. See you next class. She replied 5 minutes later. Snickers the gremlin is already canon. Prepare yourself. Rob stared at her message for a long moment, smiling like an idiot. He didn't know where any of this was going, coding, the game, or whatever strange electricity seemed to spark whenever Marcy was nearby. But for the first time in a long time, the unknown didn't scare him. It felt like potential. Chapter 6, the parent-teacher conference from nowhere. Rob always approached parent-teacher conferences with the same quiet dread most people reserved for dental surgery. Not because Donnie was a bad kid. Far from it. But teachers always had that calm, clinical tone that made even good news sound like a diagnosis. Tonight's meeting was held in a rectangular classroom with faded motivational posters on the wall and desks far too small for the adults now occupying them. Carol sat beside him, legs gracefully crossed, hands folded in her lap. She was relaxed. Rob was not. "Do you think this is about the science fair project?" he whispered. Carol raised an eyebrow. "You mean the one where he made a volcano shaped like a goblin head?" It exploded aggressively. It worked aggressively. Before Rob could argue, Donnie's homeroom teacher, Ms. Ramirez, entered with a stack of papers and a warm smile. "Hi, Mr. Mills." "Hi, Carol. Thanks for coming." Rob nodded, bracing for impact. "I'll get right to it," Ms. Ramirez said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Donnie has shown exceptional creativity this semester." Rob blinked. "He has." "Oh yes, particularly in digital arts and technology." Carol nudged him with a tiny smirk. "Sounds familiar." Ms. Ramirez continued. "In fact, Donnie recently submitted an entry to the state creative tech competition." Rob's brain stalled like an old truck engine. What now? His entry included concept sketches, world-building notes, and a short description of a video game idea. He also listed his collaborator. Rob felt his stomach drop. "Collaborator?" Ms. Ramirez nodded. "Yes, he listed you, Mr. Mills." Carol's hands flew to her mouth to stifle a laugh. Rob stared, speechless. "Me? He spoke very highly of you," Ms. Ramirez said. "Said you were working on programming together. That you two were in development." Rob groaned softly. "He makes it sound like we're a whole studio." Ms. Ramirez smiled. "Well, his entry was strong. Strong enough that the judges sent a follow-up email asking whether Donnie would be willing to elaborate on the concept if selected as a finalist." Carol leaned forward, impressed. "Wow, that's amazing." "It is," Ms. Ramirez agreed. "But it also means Donnie may need help preparing additional materials if the judges request them." Rob rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't know he submitted anything." "That's clear," Carol said lightly. "I'm not upset," Rob said quickly. "Just surprised." Ms. Ramirez glanced between them. "He's lucky to have such supportive parents. And Mr. Mills, he clearly admires you." The comment landed like a weight in Rob's chest. Heavy but warm. After the meeting wrapped, Carol and Rob walked out into the cool evening air. The sky glowed faintly purple, street lamps flickering on. "Well," Carol said as they reached their cars, "looks like your little hobby is becoming something bigger." Rob exhaled. "Yeah, apparently." Carol studied him, her expression gentle. "You okay?" "I'm proud," he admitted, a little overwhelmed. "And he listed me as his collaborator. That feels big." "It is big," she said. "And you deserve it." Rob leaned against his truck. "But now I need to help him if they follow up. Really help him. And I barely know what I'm doing." Carol smirked. "You're taking that class, aren't you?" "Yeah, but it's slow." "I'm slow." "You're learning," she said firmly. "And your teacher seems to be helping." Rob stiffened very slightly. Carol's eyes widened, and she grinned. "Oh my God, Rob, do you like her?" "No," he said too fast. "I mean no. She's nice. She's helpful. That's all." Carol laughed, leaning on her car. "Relax. I'm not judging. You're allowed to like someone." "I don't," Rob muttered. "Sure. I don't." "Okay." He sighed. "Please stop." Carol opened her door. "Just one thing. If you're worried about it affecting Donnie, don't be. He'd be thrilled if you found someone." Rob's face softened. Yeah. She paused. "And for what it's worth, I'm proud of you too." He blinked. "Why?" "Because you're trying," she said simply. "You've always tried. And not everyone does." She slid into her car before he could respond. That night, after dropping his things inside his quiet house, Rob sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through the class materials on his laptop. He opened the micro-project file he and Marcy had worked on. The little bartender sprite blinked blankly at him from the tavern counter. "You're not helpful," Rob muttered. He needed guidance, real guidance. He needed someone who knew how game design worked, who understood how to structure a project and prepare a pitch. Someone like Marcy. His stomach flipped at the thought. After several minutes of hesitation, he typed a message. "Hey, Marcy. Got a quick question if you have a moment." He hovered over the send button. Too vague. He deleted it. He tried again. "My son entered a tech competition without telling me. We might need to prepare some materials in case he's selected. Could I ask your advice?" Better. He sent it before he could chicken out. The response came almost instantly. "What? That's amazing." "Yes, of course. Tell me everything." Rob smiled. He shouldn't have been surprised. He told her briefly about the entry, the sketches, the world, and the collaboration title Donnie had assigned him. She replied after a moment. "You two are adorable and I love this." Rob buried his face in his hands. Adorable. Good grief. Then she added another message. Come early to class Thursday. I'll walk you through some things. Thursday came too quickly. Rob arrived 15 minutes early, clutching Donnie's sketchbook like contraband. The classroom was empty except for Marcy, who was seated on top of a desk, laptop open, hair falling in loose curls around her face. When she saw him, she brightened. There's my favorite collaborator. Rob froze halfway through the doorway. Please don't call me that. No promises. She hopped down and gestured for him to come closer. He handed her the sketchbook, suddenly self-conscious. But she opened it with the seriousness of someone examining an ancient manuscript. Rob, she whispered, awed. Your kid is ridiculously talented. I know, Rob said softly. Scares me a little. She pointed to one of the drawings. Snickers the gremlin perched on a bar stool. This belongs in a real game. Rob laughed. You're biased. No, she said firmly. I'm honest. She grabbed a dry erase marker and quickly drew 3 columns on the board. World building, gameplay, art. Okay, she said. If Donnie has to elaborate for the judges, we need to outline the concept like a professional pitch, but simplified so he can talk about it comfortably. A pitch? Yep, she said. A little game Bible. Just a few pages. And you're going to help him. Rob stared. I've never made a pitch. Which is why I'm here, Marcy said, as though it were obvious. For the next 20 minutes, she walked him through structure. Core gameplay loop, player goals, mood and tone, characters, conflict, art direction, potential expansion. She made it sound doable, manageable, even exciting. When she finished, she turned to him. You two can absolutely pull this off. He hesitated. Marcy, why are you doing all this? She looked startled by the question. Because you're trying to do something wonderful for your kid. And because I believe in this project. And because... She cut herself off. Rob waited. Because you make it easy to want to help, she said quietly. Something warm stirred in Rob's chest. He opened his mouth, struggling for any words that wouldn't sound ridiculous. But then students started filing in, breaking the spell. Marcy stepped away, cheeks flushed. We'll talk later. Rob nodded, heart thumping. Later that night, after class, he met Donnie at Carol's house. Donnie hopped into the truck, eyes bright. How was the conference? Donnie asked. Rob smiled faintly. We'll talk about that later. First, I gotta tell you something. Donnie leaned in, curious. You might be a finalist, Rob said. Donnie froze like someone had unplugged him. A what? A finalist. Maybe. They seemed really impressed. But if they ask for more details, we gotta prep. Donnie's grin nearly split his face. Dad. No way. That's awesome. Rob felt his heart swell. Yeah, it is. What do we do? Do we make a video? A prototype? A poster? Slow down, bud. Rob laughed. We'll figure it out together. Donnie nodded, practically vibrating. This is gonna be epic. Rob reached over and ruffled his hair. Yeah, I think it will be. As they drove home, both father and son buzzing with excitement, Rob realized something. He wasn't just doing this for Donnie anymore. He was doing it with him. And maybe, even more surprising, he wasn't doing it alone. Chapter 7, Misunderstandings, Meltdowns, and Mini-Bosses. By the following week, everything felt like it was moving too fast and not fast enough at the same time. Donnie was riding the high of possibly being a finalist, sketching like a man possessed every time he sat still. The house was littered with drawings, goblins, taverns, magical artifacts, and, inexplicably, 6 separate versions of Snickers the gremlin wearing different hats. Meanwhile, Rob's work schedule tightened as his boss kept hovering like a hawk. Mills, his boss called from across the site. I need you as acting lead on Friday. We've got the inspectors coming. Rob sighed. I can't take lead on Friday. I've got my son that night. You'll be out by 6. That's still cutting it close. His boss frowned. You're good at this. You should be stepping up. You know that. Rob rubbed his temple. I also know my son only gets me half the week. I'm not losing a minute of that. His boss sighed but didn't push further. Still, the tension sat in Rob's shoulders all day. By the time he got to class that evening, he was exhausted. He dropped into his usual seat and barely mustered the energy to pull out his notebook. Marcy was at the front, chatting with another student about code architecture, her laughter ringing through the room. She seemed brighter tonight somehow, animated, sharp, fully in her element. Rob should have felt lifted by it. Instead, something tightened in his chest when he overheard snippets of the conversation. That's amazing, the student said. So the studio offered you a contract extension? Yeah, Marcy replied, cheeks flushed with excitement. It means more long-term development work. I'll be joining the team full-time on their next project. Rob froze. Full-time. Studio. Next project. He stared down at his notebook, the words blurring. Of course she had a whole life outside this class. Of course she had real opportunities. She was talented, sharp, and wholly out of his league. He was just a student she helped out of kindness. A dad trying to keep up. She probably wouldn't be teaching the class after this term. Maybe she was already phasing out of it. And if she wasn't here, if she wasn't around, Rob pushed the thought away. He didn't have time or emotional capacity for this kind of mess. He needed to focus on Donnie's project, on the competition, on work, not on whatever the hell he was feeling. Still, when Marcy approached with her bright smile, something inside him closed up. "Hey," she said warmly, dropping into the seat beside him. "How's your week been?" "Fine," Rob replied, flipping open his notebook without looking at her. She blinked. "Just fine." "Yep. You okay?" "Yep." "Rob," she said softly, "you're answering like a malfunctioning chatbot." He forced a chuckle. "Long day at work, that's all." She studied him for a moment, that perceptive look of hers making him want to shrink into the desk. "Well," she said gently, "if you want to talk later." "I'm good," he said too quickly. A flicker of something hurt crossed her face before she masked it with a smile. "All right," she said. "Let's get started then." The class dragged. Rob found himself fumbling through tasks he normally managed fine. He made careless mistakes, zoning out completely whenever Marcy explained something. Every time her voice softened near him, he felt worse. He wasn't being fair. She hadn't done anything wrong. She deserved to be happy about her studio work. He was the one being ridiculous. When class ended, he packed up quickly, hoping to leave before she caught him. No such luck. "Rob," she said, stepping in front of him. "Wait." He stopped, shoulders tense. "Did I do something?" she asked quietly. "No," he said. "Not at all." "Then why are you acting like I canceled Christmas?" He winced. "I'm not. You kind of are." He ran a hand over his face. "It's nothing, Marcy. Really." She crossed her arms. "Rob, you're allowed to talk to me. I'm not just your instructor. I care how you're doing." That sentence nearly broke him. He swallowed hard. "It's not you." "Then what?" He shook his head. "I can't do emotional conversations tonight. Can we pick this up later?" Her expression softened with concern. "Of course." He left before she could say anything else, feeling like a coward. When he got home, Donnie was sprawled across the living room floor, surrounded by open sketchbooks. He looked up immediately. "Dad, I made an enemy design." "Look." Rob tried to summon enthusiasm. He really did. "That's good, bud." Donnie frowned. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, just tired." Donnie studied him, narrowing his eyes the way only a kid who knew him inside and out could. "You're acting weird." Rob let out a breath. "It's fine. Everything's fine." "You sure?" "Yeah, bud. Go on. Show me what you made." Donnie hesitated, then slid the sketchbook over. "It's a mini-boss, Snickers's older brother. His name is Twix." Rob couldn't help a laugh. "You're naming all the gremlins after candy?" "Obviously." They spent the next half hour reviewing sketches, but even then, Donnie kept glancing at him in concern. Rob hated that he was worrying the kid. When Donnie finally went to bed, Rob sank onto the couch, scrubbing his hands over his face. He needed to get his head straight. He needed to stop being an idiot. His phone buzzed. It was Marcy. "I don't want to pry, but I hope you're okay. If you need anything, I'm here. Even if it's just a rant about work." Rob stared at the message for a long time. She didn't deserve coldness. She didn't deserve distance. He wasn't being fair. Not to her, not to himself. But he also didn't know what to say. So he typed the safest option he could manage. "Thanks. Long day. I'll be fine. Talk soon." It wasn't enough. He knew it. But it was all he had that night. The next morning, Rob still felt off. His coworkers noticed immediately. "You look like someone stole your lunch," Travis said, handing him a thermos of coffee. "I'm fine," Rob grumbled. "You said that yesterday," Travis said. "And the day before." Rob sighed. "It's complicated." "Life always is," Travis replied. "But I'll tell you what I tell everyone. If you care about somebody, don't go quiet on them." Rob froze. "What?" "I didn't say love. I said care." Travis shrugged. "It's obvious you like this teacher woman." Rob groaned. "Can we not?" "Nope. Too late. You're in it now." "I'm not." "You are," Travis said flatly. "And if you shut down because she's got something going on in her life, that's on you, not her." Rob scowled. "I didn't shut down." Travis raised an eyebrow. "Much," Rob amended. Travis patted his shoulder. "Fix it before you make it worse." Easier said than done. That afternoon, Donnie came home buzzing with excitement. "Dad, you'll never believe it. I got an email. I'm a finalist." The words hit Rob like a rush of sunlight. "What?" he said stunned. "Seriously?" "Yeah. We have 2 weeks to prepare extra stuff for the judges." Rob didn't hesitate. He wrapped Donnie in a hug, lifting him off the ground in a swirl of pure joy. Donnie laughed, squirming. "This is amazing," Rob said, setting him down. Okay, we'll start tonight. We'll make a plan. We'll outline everything." Donnie nodded eagerly. "And maybe Marcy can help again?" Rob froze for a fraction of a second. Donnie caught it. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," Rob said. I'll talk to her." The kid studied him. "Dad, did you guys have a fight?" Rob sighed, raking a hand through his hair. I don't know. Maybe. Fix it, Donnie said simply. Rob blinked. What? You always tell me to talk to people when something's wrong. So talk to her. You like her. She likes you. This should be easy. Kids had a way of making complicated things sound laughably simple. Okay, Rob said quietly. I'll figure it out. You better, Donnie said, crossing his arms. She's cool. I don't want you to mess this up. Rob laughed despite himself. Got it, coach. That night, the three of them, Rob, Donnie, and Snickers the gremlin drawn in multiple hats, sat at the kitchen table planning the updated pitch. Even as they worked, Rob felt the weight of his unresolved tension with Marcy. Tomorrow, he promised himself he would talk to her, explain everything, fix the misunderstanding. Because Travis was right. Donnie was right. He cared. And it was time to stop running from that. Chapter 8. Patch notes for the heart. Rob rehearsed the conversation in his mind all morning. Marcy, I'm sorry I was weird. I overheard you talking about a contract and thought you weren't going to be teaching anymore. I handled it badly. Please don't hate me. Each version sounded worse than the last. By midday, he was convinced that if he tried to speak the words out loud, he'd choke on them like sawdust. He spent the whole day distracted, his measuring beams, forgetting where he'd left his tape measure, dropping a box of screws that scattered across the concrete like tiny metallic regrets. You're a mess, Mills, Travis said, sweeping screws into a pile with the efficiency of a man who'd cleaned up after Rob many times before. Talk to her. I will. When? Tonight. Travis grunted. Good, because you're giving the rest of us emotional motion sickness. That evening, Rob arrived at the community center early. Ridiculously early. An hour early. He sat in his truck for 15 minutes, then paced the hallway like a man awaiting trial. Marcy arrived 5 minutes before class, arms full of folders and a laptop bag slung over one shoulder. She looked tired but bright. Always bright. When she saw him, she paused. Oh, hey, Rob. Her tone wasn't cold, but it wasn't its usual warm sparkle either, and the difference needled him with guilt. Hey, he said quietly. Can we talk? Before class. She hesitated, then nodded. Sure. They stepped into an empty study room across the hall. The air smelled faintly of whiteboard marker and old carpet. Marcy crossed her arms. Not defensive, just waiting. Rob exhaled shakily. I owe you an apology. Her eyes softened, but she didn't speak. She let him continue. I wasn't myself last class, he said. And you didn't do anything wrong. At all. I just overheard that conversation about the studio contract. And I thought, he swallowed. I thought maybe you'd be leaving, that I wouldn't see you anymore. And I acted like an idiot. I took it out on you instead of just asking. A long pause. Marcy's brows slowly rose in realization. Oh, yeah, Rob said. Oh, she stepped closer, expression gentling. Rob, you thought I was leaving the class? Yes. To go work for the studio? Yes. And you were upset about that? He rubbed the back of his neck. Apparently. She blinked, and then, unexpectedly laughed. A warm, melodic laugh that filled the room. Rob Mills, she said, shaking her head. You absolute goof. I know. No, listen, she said, holding up a finger. The contract? It's flexible. Remote. Part-time for now. I specifically negotiated it so I could keep teaching this class. Rob froze. You what? I like teaching, she said simply. And I like this group. And, she hesitated, her voice softening. I like working with you. Rob's breath caught. Marcy continued. I wasn't going anywhere. I'm sorry you thought that. I didn't realize you overheard. He nodded. I should have just asked. Yes, she said gently. But also, I get it. Rob looked at her, confused. You do. You don't let people in easily, she said. I've noticed. You're steady and grounded and good but careful. So if something feels like it might change suddenly, it makes sense you'd pull back. He closed his eyes briefly. I don't want to pull back from you. She smiled. A small, vulnerable smile he'd never seen from her before. That's good, she said. Because I wasn't planning to step away. The tension inside him loosened so completely he nearly sagged with relief. Marcy continued. But you scared me a little. When you shut down like that. I know, he said. And I'm sorry. Truly. I believe you. They stood there for a moment. A quiet settling over them that felt safe. Warm. Like they were moving toward something fragile and important. Then Marcy took a small step closer. Rob, she said softly. Can I tell you what really bothered me? He nodded, bracing himself. I thought maybe I'd done something wrong, she whispered. And I hated that thought. Because She cut herself off, chewing her lip. Because you? Rob coaxed gently. Her eyes lifted to his, earnest and unsure and brave all at once. Because I care, she said. The words hit him like sunlight breaking through clouds. He swallowed hard. I care too, he said quietly. She exhaled shakily, relief washing over her face. Good. That's good. They stood close enough that he could smell the faint vanilla of her shampoo. Close enough that if he reached out, his hand would brush hers. Close enough that his heart felt like it was trying to beat through his ribs. But between them was the unspoken weight of everything. His responsibilities, her career, their slow build toward something they hadn't dared name. Marcy broke the moment with a soft laugh. We should probably start class. Yeah, Rob said. Probably. But neither of them moved. Then, with a burst of courage so sudden it startled even him, Rob said, I want to keep talking. After class. If that's okay. Marcy's smile was soft and bright. It's more than okay. Class felt different that night. Softer. More connected. Every time Marcy addressed the room, her eyes drifted briefly to Rob, checking in, grounding herself, or maybe just because she could now. Rob felt like his chest was full of something glowing, something warm and unfamiliar. He kept thinking, she cares, and I care too. His code was better than usual, his attention sharper. Even the other students noticed the shift. Damn, Mills, one of them said. Your logic flow's improving. Rob shrugged, but he was smiling. After class, while students filtered out and the hum of conversation faded, Marcy approached him. You ready? She asked. Yeah. They stepped outside into the cool night air. The parking lot was mostly empty, the sky dotted with stars. A soft breeze rustled the leaves along the walkway. Rob stuffed his hands into his jacket pockets. So, I want to explain something about why I reacted the way I did. Marcy nodded. Okay. I haven't. He paused, searching for the right wording. I haven't really let myself get close to anyone since Donnie was little. I wanted to keep things stable for him. Predictable. That makes sense, she said gently. And you, he hesitated, then forged ahead. You're different. Being around you feels easy, natural, but also scary. In a good way. Maybe too good. He huffed a laugh. I didn't want to mess it up. You didn't mess anything up, Marcy said. You got overwhelmed. That happens. And you don't mind? He asked, almost afraid of the answer. She stepped closer. Rob, I teach beginners for a living. You think I'm scared of a little emotional debugging? He laughed, breathless. You're something else. So are you, she said. The breeze carried her words between them, soft but steady. Rob inhaled. I want to take things slow, but I want to take them. Marcy's eyes warmed. I'd like that. It wasn't a date. Not officially. Not yet. But it was something real. A step forward. She touched his arm lightly. Walk me to my car? He nodded. Yeah, of course. They walked together, their steps falling into an easy rhythm. At her car, she turned to him, uncertain and expectant. Rob wasn't reckless. He wasn't bold or smooth. But he was sincere. So he reached out, big, calloused hand gently brushing hers. Their fingers touched, tentative. Marcy smiled. That's a good start, she whispered. He smiled back. Yeah, it is. Later that night, after dropping Donnie at Carol's and returning home, Rob sat at the kitchen table with his laptop open. The tavern map from New Haven filled the screen, glowing softly in the dim light. The bloody Goblin. His imagined world. The place where adventures began. Tonight, something real was beginning too. Something he didn't want to run from anymore. Something he didn't want to lose. He made a small edit to the map, adding a tiny constellation above the tavern. A symbol of luck, of new beginnings. And for the first time in a long time, Rob felt like he might actually deserve good things. Chapter 9, The Big Day. The state creative tech competition was held at the downtown Civic Center, a building far too shiny and modern for Rob's comfort. The glass exterior reflected bright morning sunlight like a warning beacon, and Rob squinted up at it while balancing a foam presentation board under one arm. Beside him, Donnie bounced on the balls of his feet, practically vibrating with excitement. Dad, he said, tugging Rob's sleeve. Don't be nervous. I'm not nervous, Rob replied. You're sweating. It's warm out. It's 58 degrees. Rob sighed. I'm fine. But he wasn't. Not exactly. Excited, proud, hopeful, yes. But also jittery in a way he hadn't felt since his first time presenting a group project in high school. What if the judges didn't like their idea? What if he couldn't answer their questions? What if he let his kid down? He adjusted the presentation board again, the bloody go. Lynn Tavern drawn proudly at the top, surrounded by bullet points and Donnie's character art taped neatly beside them. Carol approached from the parking lot, waving. There they are. My brilliant boys. Donnie grinned. Mom! She hugged him, then hugged Rob too. Quick and friendly. You two ready? As we'll ever be, Rob said. Carol studied him. You sure? No, he admitted. But we're here. She smiled softly. That's all that matters. Inside, the Civic Center was buzzing. Rows of tables filled the ballroom, each manned by kids holding posters or laptops, proudly showing off games, robots, or apps they'd spent months building. Parents hovered behind them like nervous stagehands. Whoa, Donnie breathed. Rob felt the same awe. He hadn't expected it to be so big, so official. Their table was near the back. They set up quickly, Presentation board propped on a stand. Laptop open to their micro demo. Sketchbooks arranged artfully. Donnie adjusted the display 3 times until it was just right. Perfect, he declared. Rob couldn't help admiring the kid's confidence. Donnie looked like he belonged here, like he was exactly where he was meant to be. A familiar voice called across the aisle. Hey, collaborators! Marcy appeared at their table, wearing jeans, a soft sweater, and her usual warm smile. She carried a tote bag filled with cables, snacks, and what looked like an emergency coffee thermos. You made it, she said. Wouldn't miss it, Rob replied. Donnie beamed. Marcy, you came. Of course I did, she said. I wanted to see your big moment. Rob's heart did something embarrassing in his chest. Carol turned toward Marcy, extending a hand. You must be the famous instructor I've heard so much about. Marcy shook her hand warmly. Guilty as charged. Carol gave Rob a knowing look that made his stomach flip. Oh no, he thought. Carol is about to be a menace. So, Carol said sweetly, you've been helping Rob a lot, I hear. Marcy shot Rob a tiny smirk before saying, he's been an excellent student. Rob choked on air. I try. We're very grateful, Carol continued. He can be stubborn. Needs someone patient. Rob muttered. I swear I'm right here. Marcy laughed, eyes sparkling. Don't worry. I can handle stubborn. Rob felt his ears warm. Carol's smile widened with smug satisfaction. She's enjoying this way too much, Rob thought. At 10 o'clock, the judging began. 3 judges circulated the room, clipboards in hand, interviewing each finalist group. Some kids spoke with rehearsed confidence. Others stumbled through explanations. A few parents over-explained, and the judges politely steered them back. Marcy stayed near the back, giving Donnie space but offering the occasional thumbs up. When the judges approached their table, Rob's heartbeat thudded in his ears. Judge number 1 smiled. So this is the Bloody Goblin Tavern? Donnie nodded eagerly. Yes, it's part of a bigger world called New Haven. My dad made it when he was a kid, and we're turning it into a video game. Judge number 2 leaned in. Oh, tell us about the concept. Donnie launched into an explanation, clear, enthusiastic, detailed. He talked about the tavern's role in the world, about Snickers the gremlin, about quests and exploration. He pointed to his drawings. He explained how the player could interact with characters. Rob watched, stunned. This wasn't a nervous kid. This was a storyteller. Judge number 3 asked, and what's your role in the project, Rob? Rob straightened. World building. I created the original setting. And now I'm learning programming so I can help bring it to life with my son. Judge number 1 smiled warmly. That's wonderful. How's the learning going? Rob chuckled. Painful, but worth it. The judges laughed. Marcy beamed from the sidelines. Donnie opened the laptop, showing the small micro demo he and Rob, and secretly Marcy, had pieced together. The judges watched the bartender sprite deliver his sticky floor warning line and chuckled. This is great, judge number 2 said. Very charming. Rob relaxed. They liked it. They really liked it. When the judges left, Donnie exhaled dramatically. Oh my gosh, that went so good. Rob ruffled his hair. You nailed it. We nailed it, Donnie corrected. Carol hugged him. I'm so proud of you. Marcy came over next, placing a hand on Rob's arm. You two absolutely crushed it. Rob met her eyes. Thank you. For everything. Marcy's gaze softened. Always. The ceremony was held on a small stage at the front of the room. Finalists gathered with their families, buzzing with anticipation. Rob didn't expect them to win first place. Their project was strong, but some entries had functional prototypes, full animations, even playable levels. They were competing with future engineers and programmers who probably coded in their sleep. But he hoped for something. Some recognition for Donnie's hard work. The announcer stepped up. Third place goes to the Robo Garden team. Applause. Second place goes to Solar Quest. More applause. And finally, first place goes to silence. Donnie held Rob's hand so tightly Rob wondered if fingers could fuse together permanently. Pixel Forge Studios. A group of teenagers in matching t-shirts screamed with excitement. Rob felt a small punch of disappointment, but only for a moment, because the announcer continued. And now, our judges' special commendation. This award goes to a finalist who demonstrated outstanding creativity, world building, collaboration, and potential for future development. This year's commendation goes to Rob's breath caught. The Bloody Goblin Tavern by Donnie Mills. The room exploded with applause. Donnie slapped both hands over his mouth, eyes wide, then threw his arms around Rob with a squeak somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Dad, we did it. Rob hugged him tight. You did it, buddy. You earned this. When they walked to the stage, Donnie's face was glowing. He shook the announcer's hand. He accepted the certificate and the small trophy. He posed for a photo that would almost certainly end up framed on Rob's wall. Marcy cheered loudest of all. Carol dabbed her eyes. Rob stood behind his son, one hand on his shoulder, and had to blink rapidly to keep from embarrassing himself in public. Later, After the crowd thinned and the adrenaline settled, the five of them, Rob, Donnie, Carol, and Marcy, went out for a celebratory dinner at a local diner. Carol took the seat beside Donnie. Marcy slid into the booth next to Rob. Felt natural. Easy. They ordered burgers and shakes. Donnie talked nonstop about ideas for expanding the game. Carol chimed in with supportive comments. Rob watched it all with quiet gratitude. At one point, Marcy leaned close and murmured, "Seeing you two today? That was incredible." Rob brushed his thumb along the edge of his napkin. "I've never been so proud." "You should be," she said. "You both shined." Rob glanced at her. There was something soft and warm behind her eyes, something he wanted to fall into. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for being here. It meant a lot." Her smile deepened. "I wouldn't have missed it." Their knees bumped under the table. Neither moved away. When dinner ended, they all walked out together. Carol hugged Donnie, then gave Rob a pointed look. "We'll talk later," she whispered, grinning. "Please don't," Rob begged. Carol patted his cheek. "Oh, I absolutely will." She waved to Marcy. "It was so nice meeting you." "You too," Marcy said. With that, Carol headed home. Donnie climbed into the truck, still clutching his trophy. "I'm gonna sleep with this thing," he announced. "You're not," Rob said. "I am. We'll discuss it." He closed the passenger door and turned back to Marcy. They stood in the glow of the diner's neon lights, the warm hum of crickets filling the summer night. It felt like a pocket of quiet just for them. "You know," Marcy said softly, "today, it felt like the start of something big." Rob nodded. "Yeah, it did. I'm really glad I met you," she added. Rob took a slow breath. "Me too." She stepped closer. "So, what happens next?" Rob didn't overthink it this time. He didn't panic or pull back. He simply said, "Whatever we want." Marcy's smile was soft, hopeful. "Good answer." And in the faint glow of the diner lights, she leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to his cheek. Warm, sweet, intentional. Rob swallowed hard. "That was an update patch," she said playfully. "Bug fix for miscommunication." Rob laughed. "I think we're running a much better version of us now." "Yeah," she whispered. "We are." She squeezed his hand, then headed to her car. Rob stood there watching her go, heart full and steady. When he finally slid into the truck, Donnie looked up from the trophy. "You kissed her, didn't you?" Rob groaned. "When did you get psychic?" Donnie shrugged. "I'm 13. I know things." Rob laughed. "Let's go home, kid." They drove off into the night, the trophy gleaming on Donnie's lap, the promise of new adventures ahead. Chapter 10, New Haven Online. The following week was a strange mix of normal life and lingering magic. Back at the construction site, everything looked the same. Piles of lumber, coils of cables, men shouting measurements over drills, but Rob felt different moving through it. Like something inside him had quietly shifted into a higher gear. He caught himself humming while hauling beams. Travis stared at him like he'd sprouted antlers. "You're in a good mood," Travis noted. "Maybe," Rob said. "Let me guess. Coding's going well." "That too." "And the teacher?" Rob didn't reply, which was answer enough. Travis grinned. "About damn time." Rob shook his head, but the truth was undeniable. Life felt lighter, clearer. A week ago, the idea of opening up to someone, really opening up, would have terrified him. But now, the thought made his stomach flutter in a way that wasn't fear, just possibility. That Friday evening, Donnie arrived for the weekend at record speed, bursting through the door with a backpack full of sketchbooks and a grin so big it looked physically painful. "Dad, we need to talk game stuff." Rob laughed. "You didn't even say hi." "I am saying hi with urgency." "All right, urgent child, what's up?" Donnie slapped a spiral notebook onto the kitchen table. "I think we should actually make the game, like for real. Not just the pitch, not just the little demo, but the whole thing." Rob blinked. "The whole thing? Like, a full game?" "Not a massive game," Donnie corrected. "Just a starter game, maybe the tavern section, or a quest from the tavern." Rob rubbed the back of his neck. "That's ambitious." "Yeah," Donnie said, "but we can do it, especially if Marcy helps." At the mention of her name, Rob felt warmth rush through him. "Maybe," he said carefully, "we should talk to her first." Donnie groaned. "Dad, she likes you. You like her. She'll say yes." Rob's ears grew warm. "That's not how things work." "Sure it is." "No, it really isn't." Donnie gave him a flat look. "You're making it weird." "I'm making it weird?" "Yes, because you're scared." Rob opened his mouth, then shut it again. Because his son had never been so right. He wasn't scared of Marcy. He was scared of messing something up, of changing everything too fast, of ruining the delicate balance he and Carol had worked so hard to build, of adding one more moving piece to Donnie's life. But maybe, just maybe, life didn't have to stay perfectly still to be good. Saturday afternoon, the three of them were scheduled to meet at the community center to review Donnie's expanded plan for the game. A small, playable version of the tavern questline. Rob and Donnie arrived early, laptops in tow. Moments later, Marcy walked in wearing jeans, a hoodie, and her hair tied up in a messy bun that somehow made her look even more effortlessly enchanting. "Hey team," she said warmly. "Hi Marcy," Donnie chirped. "We have a plan." "Oh boy," Marcy said, smiling. "Should I be scared?" "Probably," Rob said. Donnie glared at him. "Ignore him. Look." He opened the notebook and launched into a detailed explanation. New quests, goblin factions, the minorly evil council of tavern lighting, and a side character named Gristle who only spoke in riddles about soup. Marcy listened with genuine interest, occasionally scribbling notes. "This is amazing," she said when Donnie finished. "You really want to build this out?" "Yes," Donnie said. "But we need help. Dad and me. We're learning, but you're really good at this." Marcy looked at Rob, one eyebrow raised. "Are you asking me to join the project?" Rob swallowed. "Only if you want to." Marcy's smile softened. "Rob, I'd love to." Donnie pumped a fist into the air. "Yes." Marcy laughed. Okay. Before we sign blood packs or whatever, let's figure out a plan." They sat together at a table. Rob on one side, Marcy beside him, Donnie across from them, leaning forward with an intensity that could power a small nation. Marcy sketched a development outline on a whiteboard. Phase 1, basic mechanics. Phase 2, tavern interactions. Phase 3, quest logic. Phase 4, art pass. Phase 5, playtesting. "This," she said, "is doable." Rob exhaled. "Really?" "Absolutely. It'll take time, but that's part of the fun." Donnie bounced in his seat. "We're a team." Marcy reached over and squeezed Rob's hand without looking away from the board. "A team," she echoed. His heart flipped like a loose playing card. Over the next couple of hours, the three of them worked through the basics. Donnie sketched new NPCs, Snickers, Twix, and their cranky Aunt Nougat. Rob tackled some of the foundational code he'd been learning. Marcy floated between them, offering guidance, explaining systems, making them both feel more capable than they had any right to feel. At one point, Donnie left to get snacks from the vending machine. Suddenly, Rob and Marcy were alone. She leaned back in her chair, stretching her arms above her head. "He's got so much energy." "Tell me about it," Rob said, smiling. "He used to bounce off walls as a toddler." "Literally." Marcy laughed. "He's a good kid." "He is," Rob agreed softly. "And he really likes you." Marcy's expression warmed. "I like him too." There was a pause, a soft, comfortable silence. Then she added, "And I like you." There it was. Clear. Uncomplicated. Exactly what he'd been afraid and eager to hear. Rob let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Yeah. I like you too." She shifted closer. "Good. Because I wasn't imagining any of this. And I don't want to." Rob chuckled, nerves dissolving. "I don't either." Marcy glanced toward the hallway to make sure Donnie wasn't returning, then leaned in and kissed him. It was soft, warm, real, and full of every unspoken thing that had been building between them since the day he'd walked into her classroom. When they broke apart, she whispered, "That was long overdue." "Yeah," Rob agreed. "But worth the wait." Donnie returned at that exact moment with a bag of chips. He froze. "Were you guys?" Rob cleared his throat. Well," Marcy bit back a grin. Donnie sighed deeply. Finally. Rob repeated, appalled. "Dad?" Donnie said, ripping open his chips. "You two have been making eyes at each other for weeks." Mom said even she could tell. Carol said, "What?" "She said she's happy for you." Donnie took a handful of chips. "She also said you're awkward." Rob groaned. "I can't believe this." Marcy laughed. "I can." Rob sat heavily in his chair. "My entire family is conspiring." Donnie shrugged. "We just want you to be happy." Rob looked between his son and Marcy, two people who mattered more to him than he'd realized. Maybe happiness wasn't complicated. Maybe it was right here. By early evening, they had a rough playable mock-up of the tavern. It wasn't pretty. The bartender sprite flickered, Snickers's hat was too big, and the dialogue box overlapped the counter. But when the three of them gathered around Rob's laptop and clicked Run Prototype, they watched a tiny adventurer walk into the tavern, approach the bartender, and trigger Donnie's first written questline. "Welcome to the Bloody Goblin. Twix stole Snickers's hat. Please fix this." It's a whole thing. Donnie burst into laughter. "It works. It actually works." Marcy clapped. "Team Goblin for the win." And Rob smiled so hard his cheek muscles ached. This was real. This was happening. He was building something. Something he never imagined possible. With his son and a woman he was starting to genuinely, deeply care for. As they packed up for the night, Marcy lingered near him. "Hey," she said softly. "I know this is all new, but if you're okay with it, I'd like to keep being part of this. The game. Your life. All of it." Rob stepped closer. "Yeah, I want that too." She touched his cheek, thumb brushing lightly across his skin. "Good." Donnie called from the hallway. "You guys coming? I want to show Mom the prototype." Rob and Marcy exchanged a quick, knowing look. "Coming," Rob called. He took Marcy's hand. They walked toward the future together. Toward laughter. Toward storytelling. Toward New Haven. The world he'd built as a lonely kid. And was now rebuilding as a man who wasn't alone anymore. And for the first time in his life, Rob felt like he'd found exactly where he belonged. Epilogue, Patch 1. 0 Release notes, 6 months later. The Bloody Goblin Tavern went live on a mild Saturday morning in July. Not the full game, of course, but a polished, charming, surprisingly robust early access version, complete with interactive NPCs, animated goblins, 3 quest lines, and the now iconic Gremlin brothers, Snickers and Twix. The credit screen listed, world building, Robert Mills, lead artist, Donnie Mills, programming and systems, Marcy Allen, additional code, Dad, who is doing his best, Gremlin handling, Donnie Mills, moral support, Carol, snacks, everyone. It wasn't a viral hit or a blockbuster. It wasn't featured on any major gaming sites, but it quietly found its audience. Hobbyist gamers, indie lovers, nostalgic D/D fans, people who immediately recognized the heart inside this handmade world. And every day, new comments appeared online. This little tavern game made me smile more than anything I've played this year. I want Snickers merch. Whoever wrote the Goblin banter deserves a raise. Rob read every comment twice, sometimes 3 times. That morning, he stood in his kitchen pouring coffee while Donnie hunched over the laptop on the couch, watching the player count tick upward. We have 61 active players. Donnie shouted. It was 57 10 minutes ago, Rob said, raising an eyebrow. I know, Donnie grinned. We're trending. In the very small but enthusiastic category? Yes, Donnie said proudly. The best category. Rob laughed. A gentle knock came at the door. Donnie didn't even look up. That's Marcy, he announced. She's early, Rob said, glancing at the clock. She likes you, Donnie sing-songed. Rob turned red. Kid, please. It's my job, Donnie said, eyes glued to the screen. I'm a child. I make things awkward. Rob shook his head as he went to the door. Sure enough, Marcy stood there holding 2 travel mugs and a brown paper bag. Good morning, collaborator, she said, leaning in to kiss him softly. Rob still wasn't used to how easily she did that, or how much it warmed him. Morning, he said. What's all this? Fuel. We're celebrating our game launch, right? So I brought victory pastries. Victory pastries? He asked. She shrugged. There is no wrong time for victory pastries. They moved to the kitchen, where Marcy handed Donnie his drink. Caramel iced latte? She asked. He blinked. How did you know? You're predictable, she teased. He is, Rob agreed. I'm right here, Donnie muttered, but he was smiling. They spent the morning reviewing bug reports, players getting stuck behind the tavern counter, a repeating sound effect that sounded like someone sneezing dramatically, and an accidental glitch where Twix somehow cloned himself and multiplied across the tavern like a swarm of angry marshmallows. This is amazing, Donnie said, laughing so hard he nearly cried. We have a game-breaking gremlin infestation. Marcy typed rapidly. Don't worry, I can patch it. Or, Donnie said, eyes gleaming, we keep it. No, Rob and Marcy said simultaneously. Donnie sighed. You two are no fun. Rob playfully ruffled his hair. You'll survive. Around noon, Carol arrived to pick up Donnie for the day. She stepped inside, eyebrows raised at the lively chaos of laptops, notebooks, and half-eaten pastries. Looks like a command center in here, she said. It's launch day, Donnie announced. I know, Carol said, smiling proudly. I played the game this morning. You did? Rob asked. Carol nodded. I beat Twix's questline. I also yelled at Snickers for stealing my boots. Those boots are his now, Donnie said solemnly. Carol hugged him. I'll see you tonight, Bug. After Donnie ran to grab his bag, Carol looked between Rob and Marcy, then smiled softly. You two seem good. Rob felt heat creep up his neck. We are. Marcy slipped her hand in his. We really are. Good, Carol said warmly. I want him to have someone. And you're good together. Marcy squeezed Rob's hand. When they stepped outside, Donnie waved dramatically through the car window and mouthed, Don't be awkward. Rob pretended not to see it. After lunch, Rob and Marcy drove to a local park, one with big shade trees and a small lake lined with ducks who looked mildly offended by the world. They walked quietly for a while, hands brushing occasionally, until Marcy finally said, So, what do we do now? Rob smiled. Keep building, I guess. The game. That too. She looked up at him, eyes soft. And us? Rob took a breath. Not nervous. Just full. Full of everything he finally allowed himself to feel. We keep building that too, he said. Slow. Steady. Like we've been doing. I like what we're making. Me too, she whispered. They stopped beside the lake. Marcy leaned her head against his shoulder, and Rob wrapped an arm around her. You know, she said, I never expected any of this when you walked into my classroom. I thought you were another adult beginner trying to survive my terrible jokes. Your jokes are not terrible, Rob said. They are, she insisted. They're charmingly terrible. She nudged him. You're biased. Probably. He kissed the top of her head. And what about you? She asked. Did you expect any of this? Not even a little, he said. I walked in terrified, and tired, and certain I'd embarrass myself. You didn't. I did, he corrected. Repeatedly. She snorted. True, but in endearing ways. They stood there in the dappled shade, the lake glimmering before them, the faint sound of ducks arguing in the background. I'm glad you helped me, Rob said quietly. Not just with the code, with everything. Marcy turned into him, eyes shining. I didn't help you. You helped yourself. I just nudged you a little. He brushed her cheek. You nudge really well. She laughed and kissed him. This time, the kiss wasn't tentative or nervous. It was sure, soft but full. A promise shaped by laughter and late nights and shared dreams. When they pulled apart, Marcy breathed. So what's next for New Haven? Rob smiled. Whatever we want. And us. Same answer. She leaned against him, content. That evening, when Rob returned home, he found Donnie's laptop open with a new file on the screen. New Haven 2.0 Master Plan. Rob laughed under his breath. The kid never stopped. He pulled out his own notebook, the original one, the old world-building Bible from his childhood, and flipped through the pages. The drawings were faded, the handwriting uneven, but the heart was still there. He grabbed a pen and added a new note at the top. New Haven. Expansion underway team. 3 heroes status. Hopeful. Just then his phone buzzed. A message from Marcy. Miss you already. Rob typed back. Me too. Wanna come over? I'll cook dinner. Her reply came fast. Only if you promise to let me debug your soup recipe. Rob laughed out loud. Deal. Later, as the evening settled warm and quiet around the house, Rob stood at the stove stirring soup that definitely needed debugging. Behind him, footsteps padded in. Donnie leaned against the door frame, hair messy, trophy tucked under one arm. Dad. Yeah, bud. You're happy. Rob paused, spoon mid-stir. Yeah, he said softly. I am. Donnie nodded, satisfied. Good. You deserve it. Rob swallowed thickly. Thanks, kiddo. And Marcy's cool, Donnie added. I like her. So do I, Rob said. A knock sounded at the front door. Donnie grinned. She's early again. Rob smiled as he went to open it. Somewhere, in the back of his mind, the tavern lights of New Haven flickered warm and bright, welcoming adventurers, new stories, new beginnings. And as Marcy stepped inside with that warm, familiar smile, Rob realized life wasn't perfect, but it was full of laughter, of love, of possibility. And for the first time, he didn't feel like he was waiting for adventure. He was living one.